Hello and welcome. Tess Harper's first big screen role, Tender Mercies, proved to be a springboard to a long and illustrious award-winning career. It didn't hurt that her co-star was Robert Duvall, and the screenplay was by acclaimed playwright and screenwriter Horton Foote. And the director was Australian Oscar winner Bruce Beresford, whose credits would go on to include Driving Miss Daisy, Breaker Morant, Crimes of the Heart and Paradise Road. Tess had begun her acting career in what's called street acting in big theme parks like Dogpatch USA and Silver Dollar City. She quickly transitioned from TV ads to telemovies before Bruce Beresford cast her in Tender Mercies. Now, Tess's movie and TV credits have since included Silkwood with Meryl Streep, The Jackal with Bruce Willis, and Crimes of the Heart opposite Diane Keaton, Sissy Spacek and Jessica Lange, for which she was nominated for a Best Supporting Actor role. And more recently, Tess has been in the Breaking Bad movie. But back in the 80s, shortly after she'd finished shooting Tender Mercies, I caught up with her to chat about her background and making the movie with Bob Duvall.
Tess, being your first film, it was obviously something of an experience, but your background before that, what kind of work did you have to carry you into it?
I have a degree in theater from a small university in Missouri. After I graduated from college, we went to Houston, Texas, where I worked full-time as a secretary and would go to the theater every night and work for free in what is essentially a community theater. We would do new playwrights work. We would do the classics. So I was learning all that time. Then I got tired of putting all my energy into a job just to get enough money to go be an actor for free, and I moved to Dallas, which has its own acting community. There are a lot of commercials done in Dallas, a lot of industrial films. So I continued to work part-time and as any number of things, actress, waitress, whatever, and then do commercials and theater in the other time. And that's what I was doing when Bruce Beresford came to town to read for Tender Mercies.
So at that point, I mean, looking back now, I suppose it's easy to do so too, but were you in fact an ambitious actress who really did want to make it in Hollywood and be a star?
I really did want to be a good actress, and I don't know what star means. Ask me after all this is over. But it was more important to me that my peers think I was good, and it was more important to me to actually do it. There's so much joy and satisfaction in doing a play and getting applause at the end of the play, or doing a commercial and having someone call you and say, you know, you're pretty good in that. So I was still learning the craft, and every year I would have a crisis and say, do I go to New York and lose the accent, and go to L.A. and capitalize on the accent? And that year would go by, and I still wouldn't have made a decision. Luckily, Bruce Beresford came to town and made the decision for me.
Yeah. So
I was in the right place to get that part, because I was still close to the roots, which that story was about, the people that I grew up with, and I still had the rhythm of Horton's speech. And I think if I'd lost that, if I said I'm going to L.A. and I'm trying to be an actress, I would be lost in a crowd of hundreds of actresses who tried to get in to read for that part.
So how did you actually find out that you did have the part, after all the waiting and everything?
I got a call from the casting director who says, Bruce Beresford's on his way to Dallas. He wants to see you in the morning, and he wants the cinematographer to look at you. It looks good, but they're not for sure. So I went in and had a meeting with Bruce Beresford and Russell Boyd. And they opened these huge drapes in front of the window and put me there with strong sunlight coming in on my face. And about 15 minutes into the interview, Bruce looked at Russell and said, she's not ugly, is she, Russell? They tried to tell me she was ugly. And Russell very calmly says, oh, she has 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth, all in about the right place. And then he gave me a big wink and he said, you must realize that Bruce has a very twisted sense of humor. And I said, well, do I have the part, or do I slip my wrist? What's the deal? And Bruce said, you might chill the champagne, but you might wait till it's official. And the next day there was a knock on my door, and I opened it, and there was Bruce and Russell with champagne in their hands. So that's when it was official.
Great. And what was it like working with, I mean, obviously you'd worked with all the Americans before, but did the Australians bring anything different at all, perhaps a refreshing look at a particular aspect of the story, do you think?
I think the Australians and the Texans share a kind of frontier spirit and pioneer background, and I think it was very hard to tell one from the other, actually. They play football with different rules, but as far as I can tell, that's the only difference.
And love beer, I gather, from
I think the love of beer is very common between the two.
Now, one of the important things in the story is the relationship between you and your son, with whom you'd been living, until Robert's character came along. The young boy who plays that, what was his background in it? Did you, in fact, have to sort of help him a lot?
No, Alan's a natural actor, or he's a natural un-actor, which makes him wonderful on cinema. They found him in the 4th grade in a small school in Paris, Texas, which is a town of about 40,000. And he is really a kid. He's not a child actor. He's never done commercials before that. He has a wonderful ability to watch other people and pick up on what they're doing. And he would watch Robert Duvall and I, and it would immediately come to him, the style, and he would fit in with us beautifully. And he listens, and sometimes it's hard to find children who really listen, especially when it's something that you're telling them the same thing over and over for different takes. He's a natural actor. Alan's really got a refreshing directness.
Yes, he
totally
does lend that.
On camera.
Yes.
And we still stay in touch. He wrote me and said, "I've just won the spelling bee for the Dallas Morning News." I mean, that's a real kid, and his soccer team is winning, and I hope he stays unspoiled.
For Australians, we often wonder when we see American films about places other than New York and Los Angeles, and we wonder just how real they are. So, can I ask you, did Bruce get it right?
We did his research beautifully, and Horton Foote, who wrote that script, is from that part of the country, and together they really created that culture, because people live like that in rural America. They're still out there. A lot of people have moved to the cities, but I know I grew up with people like that, with that kind of simple faith and that kind of accepting quality where they know they can't fight nature, and the best they can do with their life is to accept the lot that God has given them. That's kind of Calvinistic, but that's the way they approach their life. And that kind of simple integrity and the honor that he gave those people. They don't ride around with shotguns in the back of their pickup trucks, and they don't wear sheets and pick on members of minority races. They're wonderful, honest, loving, simple, dignified people. And that they put that story on the screen is just, it's amazing to me.
Now, although this was your first film, since then you've practically not stopped working at all. You've done 2 films. Can we touch on briefly? Firstly, the Karen Silkwood story. You've got a small role in that. Can you tell us a little bit about that one? What sort of a character?
Well, it's based on the true story of Karen Silkwood, and Meryl Streep has the role, and it's directed by Mike Nichols. And I think it's going to be a major film, but we'll have to wait and see when that.
But can you talk a little bit about just the woman that you play in that film? How much different is she from?
I'm the direct opposite of Karen Silkwood, and I'm not like Rosalie in that film, because Rosalie is a phenomenon. I don't know that there'll ever be another woman's role like her again. The woman I play in the Silkwood story is kind of uptight, very unsure of herself, and trying to be the perfect wife, really trying to be the perfect wife. Rosalie was just simply a perfect person. She never tried to be, she just was. And
how easy was Meryl to work with, in fact?
She was the very best, and she was very kind and nice lady.
And what about another film that you should create a lot of curiosity, at least, is Amityville 3, I think it is, or 2, in 3D.
Amityville 3D, we're talking glasses and the whole 9 yards.
So
that's an American term.
You leap out of this from the screen.
Completely. Any number of things leap out at you. I haven't seen The Dailies, but it's directed by Richard Flesher, who's a wonderful action director, and I hear the new 3D technique is incredible, and the people who did the special effects did Poltergeist, so we should, scare you silly by the end of the summer.
So who do you play in that?
I play a worried mother who, my husband in the film, who's played by Tony Roberts, and I are getting a divorce, and like an idiot who moves into a haunted house. And so any number of things start going bump in the night after that point.
Well, don't tell us too much, because we'll want to go and see the film.
You've got to keep the suspense.
Okay, Tess, thank you very much, and all the best with your career.
Thank you.
Tess Harper is 72 now and still working. Her next films to look out for are Our Almost Completely True Story, The Doherty Gang, and Rosebud Lane.